Ramsuratkumar ki Sarvam Yogi Ramsuratkumar Arpanamastu. It looks like we have had a dip in the ocean of Ananda, the ocean of grace, the ocean of His glory. What a holy bath it is. It really felt like a dip in the ocean, a very joyful, blissful dip in the ocean. I have no idea how many of you felt it. The vibrant presence is pure joy. For so long, every day, we have been going through some experience or the other, of some devotee or the other, in order to relive those experiences and make them our own, so that the joy of it would be our own. No matter how many times people tell you how sweet something is, unless you taste it yourself, you would never know what it is to be sweet. So, it's with deep, deep gratitude we shall celebrate this moment of pure joy, of our dip in the holy ocean of His grace. We shall see how His kripa, His grace, came to the help of a Mexican devotee in two different places. A couple by name Stefan and Carla. Carla is Mexican and Stefan French. Stefan used to come right from the 80s. I'd seen him from the late 80s, coming to Sanadi Street house with his master. And even now, every year, without fail, he would present himself with his wife Carla at the ashram. Carla has written an experience, how the Nama came to her help. They had attended a meeting in somebody's house in Mexico. In Mexico, that was an area, it's a posh area of huge bungalows. In one of those bungalows, Carla and Stefan had a meeting with some devotees. By the time it was over, it was well past 11 o'clock in the night. So they came out, they had to go back to the place where they were staying. And Carla had brought her mother's car, a small car. And Stefan asked her to drive. And they had hardly moved from the place. Suddenly, Stefan spotted a car coming in the opposite direction. Very intuitive, Stefan is. Suddenly he felt something was wrong with the car, with the man in the car. So he told his wife, drive fast. Fast, fast. Carla looked at the car and she thought, why is Stefan disturbed unnecessarily? There was nothing wrong with anything as far as she was concerned, and she thought Stefan was being paranoid. But then there was an urgent tone in his voice which could not be denied, and she was driving fast. The car was coming slowly, and then when it came near, when she was crossing the car, she had a look at the face of the man who was driving the car. It was absolutely evil. There was such hatred, such violence in his eyes. She was completely shaken. Just one glance. And then she was very, very frightened, and she was driving the car fast as she could. And they felt that this man was after them and anything could happen to them. And that is when she was trembling and still driving the car. She remembered Yogi Ramsuratkumar. It was well past 11:30, nearing 12 o'clock midnight, and there was nobody on the road. Even if she shouted, nobody would come. Only Yogi Ramsuratkumar. So she started to chant loudly, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar. And instantly, there was a difference in the atmosphere. Stefan said, Carla, calm down. Drive ahead, fast. And as she was driving, chanting and driving, this man, this evil man, began to follow them behind. So she was driving very fast, and it was a long road, and she was driving and driving and driving. There were many, many speed breakers, but she was in no position to mind all that because she wanted to get somewhere. Stefan was asking if she knew any way out of that street. She said yes, but she was not very sure. And she was driving over those speed breakers, and there was no speed braking, but she was thinking that a car would brake. Such was her driving, out of fright. And finally she came to a junction of 3 roads, and the name that she was chanting, suddenly she took the middle road. She had no idea she was going the right direction or wrong direction, but the Nama was there, and then she drove on the middle road, and just then another car was coming, and the car was nearing them, and the man behind, the evil man behind, made use of it. Immediately he overtook the other car and came straight before them, before the car of Carla. The one who was following him all the time now overtook. He made use of the opportunity of the other car. The car was now between the evil man's car and Carla's. And the evil man drove faster than Carla, and he was right in front of Carla's car, as though blocking her way. Now Carla was in a dilemma. But Stefan had very clear thinking, and now Carla was also very alert. She says the chanting of the name had made them very alert. The energy that came out of it created an atmosphere that they became very alert. And Stefan said, Carla, go on the reverse. He's there blocking the way, now go. Take the reverse. Don't stop, go on. And Carla says, I have no idea how to act, but I was acting, and I was acting the right way. I went on the reverse without stopping anywhere. And then I came to the other road, and there was another road to my right. In the meantime, the man in the front, the evil man in the front, he stopped the car, he got down from that, and he had a gun in his hand. He was pointing to these people, but then Carla just went on the reverse without stopping even for a second, and as soon as she came to the edge of the road and she saw another road to her right, and without thinking, she went on to the first gear, accelerated, and was moving so fast, the man, even though he came near the car, he had no choice because she could be riding over him. He saw the speed of the car and then he just moved away lest the car should run over him. And she made use of the time and moved very fast on the other road and disappeared out of his sight. It was a dangerous situation for both of them. Both of them had escaped very narrowly. The man looked every bit evil, and he was aiming at them for some reason of his. But somehow, Carla says, the Nama chanting, Yogiji's Nama, filled the atmosphere, filled her brain, her hands, her whole body to act exactly the way they should act to escape from this danger. Stefan was giving instructions very clearly, and she was executing them as clearly and as efficiently. Carla says, we could not have escaped from that man that day, in the middle of the night, but for the name of Yogi Ramsuratkumar. Such was the power they experienced. This happened in Mexico. She says another time in Paris, in France. Both of them, Carla particularly, they were yoga teachers for a long time, and every year they used to come to Tiruvannamalai, and they would have yoga classes here. They would come with a group. And then I would talk to them about Yogi Ramsuratkumar. We had satsang. Now when they were in Paris, Carla was learning the Chinese traditional martial art. It's one of those martial arts. I mean, there are different kinds. And this particular martial art This is called Tai Chi. Here, they are physical exercises, but one has to be very alert. The movements will be very slow and measured. And it gives body health, clarity in thinking, and concentration, weight loss. So many health benefits for both the body and the mind. So she was very keen, bent upon learning it. Her teacher, this Tai Chi teacher, was right in the front, giving instructions. She was standing, her husband, Stefan, was standing near, watching the whole show. So as she was doing a particular posture, the teacher came suddenly behind her and pressed a certain point on her back. For her, it looked as though he was hitting her at the back. She could feel this powerful hit at the back, even though he was merely pressing a certain point on the back. And suddenly, she collapsed. She could no more stand there, and she began to lose strength in the body. She came down, almost fell down on the floor, and then she began to feel a lot of pain everywhere. What was more, her consciousness was withdrawing from the outside objects. She heard Stefan say something to the teacher, but the voice was fading and fading. It seemed to come from far away. And then the voice stopped. She knew that her consciousness is being drawn completely from outside. There was such pain all over the body. And what was more, she was feeling cold. The whole body felt as though it was on ice. They say when the death comes, it would be somewhat like this. The body would begin to feel cold. And there would be such pain. Death is a painful experience. And suddenly, she knew as she was collapsing, her teacher came to the front of her, took her both hands in his, and he was pressing a point on the wrists, both the wrists. He was just pressing some point, probably to bring back consciousness to all the parts of the body. But all that happened was just the reverse. The consciousness was beginning to retreat. And slowly, slowly, she knew she was losing consciousness, and there was such terrible pain all over the body, and it was getting colder and colder by the minute. And suddenly she saw a tunnel of white light. And then she was still conscious. She remembered how people had described death, passing through a tunnel of light. And then she felt instantly she was facing death, that she was dying. The minute she knew that she was dying, she felt terrible. She felt such terrible fear. And the Nama, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, jumped from inside. She was not able to shout his name because she had very clearly withdrawn from all the parts of her body. She could not move her lips, she could not shout. But inside, the consciousness was very clear, and the Nama came, and she began to chant. She began to remember Yogi Ramsuratkumar, the name. That's what she writes. Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar. As soon as she started that, she wanted to tell the teacher not to touch her wrists, not to press those points on the wrist. And it was because of that the reverse was happening. Her consciousness was withdrawing and she was facing death. And absolutely no strength in the body. She was collapsing. She wanted to tell him to stop it, but then there was no way she could speak. And suddenly this Nama took over, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar. She says, like magic, the next second, the teacher left the hands free. He took away his hands from the wrists of Carla. With the result, she felt instantly energy flowing into her body and the return of consciousness fully, the return of consciousness to the parts of the body. She sat there with her face between the knees and she became fully conscious. And what was more, strength was returning to the body. All at the mention of Yogi Ramsuratkumar, when she was diving into the abysmal depth of death. Yogi Ramsuratkumar did the magic. She came out of the tunnel and the man left her wrists and there was energy flowing into the body. Now the pain was much, much, much less in the body. The consciousness was moving out to the entire body and the strength was returning. And then soon she was able to open her eyes and she became normal. She says she was facing a certain death, a disastrous death, but the chant, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, how magically it worked its way and gave her a new lease on life. This is the magic of the name Yogi Ramsuratkumar. There are people, a lady reported from Alaska, people report from Australia, be it Argentina, Australia, Alaska, or Papua New Guinea. There have been people reporting to me the strange experiences, the help, guidance, protection they've been getting from the name Yogi Ramsuratkumar. Just imagine, put yourself in the position of Carla, going through the experience of death, the fear, the pain of death, and going out of the body slowly, somewhere into darkness. Imagine, and suddenly the magic of the name, the magic of life returning. Bhagwan, Yogi Ramsuratkumar used to say, this beggar can make Maha Meru, the huge divine mountain, out of a clump of clay. This beggar has the power. He would also sometimes say, this beggar could convert a terrible poison into nectar, Ambrosia. This beggar has the power. One day when he was saying, suddenly he said, oh, what is this beggar saying? This beggar is saying that he has the power. No, 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 it is my father. It's my father. My father has the power to change a clump of clay into Maha Meru, the huge mountain, the divine mountain. He has the power to change the poison into Ambrosia. And then when I asked him later, when I confronted him with this statement, he admitted, he said, this beggar, no matter what the truth is, he cannot talk the truth to some people. People would not understand if he spoke like that this beggar has the power. This beggar has to speak in the language which people would understand. They would throw stones at this beggar. They would kill this beggar. This beggar has had the experience. This beggar would speak like this about this power only to a very few who can understand this beggar. So you see, Bhagwan is Bhagwan with his endless power. He often said, those people who work for this beggar, who do Father's work, the most difficult situations would turn into huge blessings. His assurance, turning poison into nectar. Now, these days, Bhagwan, he comes in the form of an old man. He comes in different forms. But he had also given a specific assurance to some devotees, you don't have to come all the way spending money. Wherever you are, you call out this beggar would come in the form of a butterfly. This beggar would come running, flying to your place and do the needful. So there have been many experiences where Bhagwan appeared in the form of a butterfly to bless people, to do the needful in situations. Dr. Ramanathan reports when he had arranged for a puja in his place, in his house, the bhajan groups were singing, come near, come near, come here, come now. They were singing, come near, come here, come now. And when they began to sing like this, suddenly out of nowhere a butterfly appeared, and the butterfly began to dance to the tune of their bhajan. Everybody saw it. It was dancing and dancing to the tune of the bhajans of these people, and after the bhajan was over, it went to the picture of Bhagwan and sat there to clearly point out to people it was he who danced, it was he who came to give darshan. And there is one devotee from Pollachi, his name is Muthukumar. He comes to the ashram, does a lot of seva, stays here for some time doing seva. He reports in one of his speeches, it seems he had gone to Ananda Ashram. He has a shop in Pollachi. He went to Ananda Ashram to spend some time there. One day, when he saw there was an electric post, when he was just passing by, he saw a butterfly there, sitting on the post. And then he remembered Bhagwan would come in the form of a butterfly. Immediately he stopped, and with folded hands, he began to sing, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, worshipping the butterfly, Bhagwan in the form of the butterfly, chanting his name. He says, soon after that he got the news that there was a fire accident in the place where his shop was. And the fire, it was a great disaster, a major accident which burnt the other shops, but his shop was unburned. There were many books also there in the shop, but nothing happened to any of them. The books were all intact as they were. There was only one reaction, and that was there was a mirror. And because of the heat, it broke into pieces. But for that singular reaction, there was nothing else that his shop was saved. He believes it is the appearance of the butterfly sitting there and he's worshipping it. Well, Bhagwan saved his shop. Now the question may come, why would Bhagwan save one shop and not the others? He is Bhagwan. All are equal to him. Should he not save the other shops as well? Should he not help everybody the same way? No. The divine will not do that. Why? Because the divine has designed the fire accident. According to the karmas of people, the designing of the events is being done by God. And according to God's plan, the divine plan of God, everything runs in this world. And if you want to escape from the result of a certain fate, you have to invoke grace by calling out the name, by worshipping the Lord. And the grace may mitigate the suffering or may even remove it completely. It is left in the hands of God. But God would not step in, would not intervene unless His grace is invoked. You have to call out, He comes. He hears and comes. He has ears everywhere. You have to knock on His door. He would open the door. Only then He would open the door. He may be right at the door outside and the door is still closed and you are in great danger and you are not calling out His name. He cannot come inside. It has happened. We have to call out, we have to pray to God, pray to Bhagwan. We have to ask for things. We cannot say, oh, Bhagwan knows everything, why should we ask? He knows everything, but He doesn't have to act because you didn't call. If you do not ask God for what you want, you will be asking every Tom, Dick and Harry. So it's better to ask. When can you resign yourself to God's will? When you have reached that high level of surrender. Like a small baby, a few months old baby, it won't be able to move out. The mother has to do everything. It wouldn't know if a snake should appear, come near. It wouldn't know if a tiger should pounce on it. The mother has to protect the child. But that is the state of final surrender, where of course everything, every move of your life will be run by the divine. As long as the ego is active, as long as there are likes and dislikes, the pairs of opposites, if you want something, you have to ask God and ask Him in such a way that it would invoke His grace, it would invoke His divine intervention. Otherwise, life would run according to our fate. Now this Bhagwan, who can do magic instantly in our lives, is here in the form of his Shilamurti, with his hand raised in benediction. Bhagwan used to say that the grace flows all the time. There is no time when the grace is not. The grace is everywhere. God is grace. Grace is God. There is no difference between God and His grace. And this Bhagwan used to smile and say, the grace is flowing from all directions, all the time. It's pouring like rain, he would say. But we have to learn to receive it. How? If the wind is outside the room, and if there is no wind in the room, it means you have closed the room. You have closed every window, every door. So there may be a storm outside, but no wind can enter. So when you chant the name Yogi Ramsuratkumar, or when you remember any of his Leelas, you're opening a door, you're opening a window, and the grace would go in and do the needful. When you are desperate, you call out his name with your entire being, and then the result is immediate. There is instant and powerful help from God, like Carla had. So let's appeal to that boundless generosity of Bhagwan, Yogi Ramsuratkumar. We have chanted his powerful Nama. We have had a holy dip in the ocean of his Nama Sankirtan and feel baptized. We have had the holy bath. And now we will offer our worship and pray to him, Bhagwan,